far. I've already seen a bunch of, I don't know what the fuck they are. Guys buying weed or something, maybe. Junkies. There's a weirdo down the street up here. You know what this guy does? He screams at the top of his lungs and throws tires at night. So what's up, you guys? I have a solution. Someone asked, what would you do to solve the border crisis? Okay, well, pretty simple. A couple things you ought to know about. What the shit? Okay. To solve the problem at the border, you need to have some people with thick skin. People are not afraid of being shot at, and people who know how to handle themselves. There's only one population in the U.S. I can think of that could handle, you know, security for the whole country. But I just happen to know two ideas that would actually work to control the border, and you wouldn't even need, like, you wouldn't need guards. None. And I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, the cartel will kill us all and all that shit. Not if we're not there, fighting against anyone. So here's my solution. We should all, every single veteran, every one of us, should get a piece of land on the border. Every single one of us. Well, let's say there are 20,000 veterans just in Texas, Arizona, and California. And you give me those 20,000 guys and give me 20,000 weapons. Long guns with scopes. They don't need to be automatic. I don't want them to be automatic. I want them to be single shot, semi-automatic, and by the way, let's say for example, let's say this coffee cup is the border, and this is the border. Over there is Mexico, where all the migrants are coming through. On this side is the U.S. right here, this section right here. Now in Mexico, on this side over here, when you get into the country, you're not actually in Mexico yet. You're actually in a sort of a void space. There are no laws in this particular area. Then when you get to customs, I'm saying this for a bus. Come from Tijuana, and as you're heading towards, the south, you pass through Sonora, the Sonora Desert, which has these cactuses that are, 20 something feet tall. They're huge. I thought they were fake. When I saw them, I was like, wow, they were so big. I've never seen cactuses so big in my life. So as you're leaving Tijuana, you pass through this like no man's land. It's like a zone, kind of like Panama and Costa Rica. There's that section right there, and it's like the tax-free zone. There's all kinds of shopping and shit there too. Um, so we, as veterans, if the land on the border is just desert or whatever, then give it to us. Give all of us an acre of land. How about that? How about give every single veteran an acre of land, starting from California and going all the way through Arizona and Texas and everything else. Give every veteran 1 acre of land to do whatever they want. But the only requirement that they have is that they either do one of two things. They either A, set up a training center for a firing range, or B, set up a training center for bee rescue. So if I have 1 acre of land on the border of Texas and I have bee boxes all over my land, and I have, it's obviously it's a secured area. It and my secured area, by the way, my 1 acre of land that has 50 bee boxes and a archery lane. I have an archery firing range. We do archery, we do paintballs, but these are not normal paintballs. The paintballs that they produce is the hardened plastic, and then the kind that has habanero pepper, ghost peppers, inside the ball itself. So when you fire the weapon and that ball hits them at 35 fucking miles an hour, bam! It doesn't just hit them and hurt. It impacts, but then it explodes, and inside is habanero pepper gas or some shit. Anyway, not that we would use them on people. These are only for training. You see, the big problem right now in the U.S. is that the U.S. citizens do not trust the cops. They know that the cops are fucking up people's lives. They know the cops are arresting people illegally. They know the cops are violating their Fourth Amendment rights, their First Amendment rights. A lot of these people are getting arrested for speaking in words. And they're getting arrested and they're having their First Amendment rights violated and their Fourth Amendment rights violated. Fourth Amendment is when it's illegal to search and seize property of an individual. And what happens every single time I see one of these cop videos where the cops are doing the wrong thing, every single time they're violating the people's rights from the word go. They're trying to push a thing that says, well, we're cops and you have to listen to us. Like, well, actually, in reality, I have the right to, A, remain silent, right? I have the right to the freedom of speech. And you know what? The cops cannot arrest you for using bad language. I don't believe so. I don't know. I haven't been there a long time. So why would I think so highly of the idea of training centers? Well, I don't really particularly need weapons. I don't need small arms. I don't need any of that stuff. All I want is to be able to have an archery center, a paintball like camp, so that people can. There'll be a lot of activities on these, acres of land that we've been given. You guys hear that? It's every night, guys. Every night. I don't mind. But listen. So if let's say that like these 4 Marines had 4 acres of land they decided to get together. Got 1, 2, 3, 4. The 2 of them have a police training center because they're sick of people treating cops like shit. And I'm like, whatever your fucking plans are, dude, do whatever you want. What I'm saying is that if you have a firing range and you don't necessarily have to point it towards the border. We said again, this is the border. Do not have your firing range pointed towards the border. You want to have it this way, going parallel. Not that see, the thing is that firing ranges scare even people who enjoy shooting, even people who like to practice. But like I said, if you have 20,000 people who are overly qualified and painfully overqualified in the act of war, and they're retired, so they don't really have a use anymore, you give them all. I said 4 Marines. They didn't buy anything. They were gifted 4 acres of land. 2 of them decided they wanted to come to beekeeping class or whatever. They're like terrified the whole time, big fucking dudes, and they're like, oh, these fucking bees. I was like, no. The bees are your friends until you piss them off. And the minute you piss them off, they go and they just sting anybody and everybody at random. because bees release a pheromone that says protect the queen at all costs and sting everybody and anything within a certain period of a certain radius. Protect the queen. And that's what they do. So if you have a situation where you've got migrants that are illegally crossing into the border and there's a lot of signs that say there are bees and they don't know what kind of bees, any kind of bees, African bees, for example. All right, I've had to go and suck them out of a telephone pole, like a metal telephone pole, and all you do is just stick your shop vac like that. I have a little bit of gasoline in the bottom of the vacuum cleaner, so when I'm sucking out the African bees with the machine, they're going straight into the gasoline, or it just gases them out. So I'm not putting African bees into my truck and taking them and putting them somewhere else. I'm killing them. I don't care. So I wanted to tell you the reason why I wanted to take the border towns is because there are two species of bees that occupy the space between Mexico and the United States. The perfect environment for honeybees. Now, there are a lot of species of bees. The types of bees that we messed around with in Puebla, I had never seen before in my life. I mean, I've seen like bees, different types of bees, but let's just take a look ski and see what it says. Because specifically this place where I was at, I was going to say, let's say, how many species of bees are in Mexico? What the shit's going on here? Okay, let's try that again. How many species of bees are in Mexico?
According to our world, of the more than 20,000 bee species in the world, including native species, 2,000 are native to Mexico and depend on specific local weather, vegetation and forest conditions. The main differences between the honey produced by western and native species of honeybee are in flavor, production capacity and colony size.
All right, so the different types of bees occupy different spaces. And the environment that's on the border of Mexico and of Texas. Okay, so Texas, the border of Texas, the border of Arizona, and the border of, well, there's three. California. We're not doing New Mexico. Only Arizona, California, and Texas. And I've already asked a couple of politicians to pass a bill to give veterans free land. I mean, it sounds crazy, but if you strategically place veterans, where they want to be around each other, because veterans are like bees. Veterans will, well, I'll give you an example. There's two colonies of bees, and one of them is being used for this movie set. And we bring the bees in to the movie set, so we're all, and we have the smoke, so we don't have any pheromones going off and stinging all the actors and shit. The minute that one of the actors does like that, they send pheromones off and say attack. But if you use the smoke first, the bees will not produce the pheromone in order to call all the other bees to say, let's get it on, because that's what I like to do. So the types of bees that are on the border of Texas, Arizona, and California, there are two types of honeybees. One of them is just a regular honeybee. Then there's another type that's a super bee. And a super bee can do the work of 10 bees as far as honey production. And they all live together. So it's two types of bees. They're totally different. They happen to thrive really well in Texas and California and in Arizona. Not wasps. I'm talking about just straight honeybees. I went ahead, I asked for Chip Roy from Texas. I didn't talk to Chip. I talked to his assistant or one of his people in his office, and his director of whatever his office is. And I said, "Can I send a formal letter to the congressman, to the senator?" And he said, "Yeah, of course." So I get the senator's address, and I have it on our Firefighters Without Borders letterhead, and I say, "Dear Senator Roy, I am a veteran from the United States Air Force, and I'm also a beekeeper. And I feel like we could possibly utilize the land that is not being used in the state of Texas. The state of Texas has lots of land that's in between wherever their cross points are, checkpoints, or their border crossings. So I said, in between the borders, if you will gift every veteran 1 acre of land, just 1 acre, we can turn the entire border into a giant business that is ecologically sensible, and we will double down on our efforts to retrain police to do things like de-escalate and how to handle weapons. Also, it might be in the best interest of Texas, Arizona, and California. Well, California doesn't care yet, but they will. About teaching their officers jujitsu and certain techniques that don't involve the choke, but rather the seatbelt. If you've ever seen guys get wrapped up, what we do is you just take the arm like this, cross it, and then you're going to reach underneath the person's back, and you're just going to seatbelt's what it is. It's called a seatbelt. Once you have them crossed, they have their own, like once they're crossed over like this, they can't get out of it. They can't move their arms. They're wrapped up like a pretzel in their own arms, and they can't get out. It's pretty hilarious. I could take one hand and trap two arms, and I take my knee and put it on the belly so they can't get out, and they're losing air by the second. These are kind of techniques that can be used by the cops, but they're not. They're not employed by the cops because cops don't train. They train in rear naked choke and whatever the hell else their instructors do. Me personally, I think the seatbelt should be the thing, the wrap up technique. No more rear naked chokes. There's no need for it because we're not trying to knock people out. If you're just trying to control them, for example, one of the instructors was in a 7-Eleven, and this fucking guy, he tried to rob the store, and I think he did something to this instructor who's a black belt in jiu-jitsu, and it was just a typical takedown. It was like 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and the guy was literally on the ground, and he's in a seatbelt, so he's got his hands here trapped up like this, and he can't get out. And he held him there until the cops arrived. And now, at the same time, he's able to talk, he's able to breathe, he's not in any danger of dying, but he's also not fucking going anywhere, which is a miserable position to be in, especially when you suddenly realize how fucking helpless you are to have a black belt in jiu-jitsu fucking grab you and just wrap you up. And you cannot move. And if you guys ever roll with brown belts, fucking brown belts will turn you inside out and make you give back things you never stole. Your hands will be trapped, on one side, and he'll have your fucking he'll have your arm in his legs over here, and then he'll have the other arm trapped over here. And if they want to hit you with elbows, they can. Bam, bam, bam. We saw that in one of the first UFC fights where a guy had him in the crucifix. God, that was a brutal fight. It didn't last very long because immediately he took the guy down. I don't remember if the guy sprawled or not, but he really quickly wrapped him up in a seatbelt. And then they transitioned to which I thought was a whizzer, but it was a crucifix. A crucifix is where that arm is stuck and trapped between the feet, and that arm is stuck, and there is no getting out of it. Like, you can't get out of this. You can try and muscle your way through it, but guys, let me tell you something. When your hands are like this and like this, and you cannot fucking move, and a jiu-jitsu guy grabs a hold of you. So that's what I'm saying, is that if we get a problem with the cops in the United States, brutality, excessive force, all that stuff. The only way to fix it is to send veterans to teach these people how to behave themselves. All right, de-escalation is the first thing. If there's, we could teach everything. Veterans could teach everything. All right, I don't give a fuck. We're overqualified to do half the shit that we learned, and many went off to war and never fired a shot. So you better believe me. There's some Marines that have been cleaning their fucking rifle, and they go off to the desert. And while they're in the desert, do not get the opportunity to squeeze off even one shot. All right, those are the trigger happy motherfuckers that are actually needed in firing ranges. If you have training centers, you have firing ranges that teach regular people how to, weapon safety. But the other portion of it is law enforcement. Because if there's a problem with law enforcement choking the fuck out and killing people, why don't we just fix the problem? You send the most qualified people with weapons, which are veterans. We're also the most, overly painfully qualified than any other civilian population, right? And if you gift veterans land to and to establish their own business, this is why I say this. Veterans villages aren't organized. Like there might be a veterans village like the one that's here. It's a whole apartment building that has 11 apartments, and 11 out of 11 of those apartments are occupied by veterans and their girlfriends. I don't know. Wait a second. They do not allow girls to sleep overnight in veterans villages. Daytime, no problem, and they have to be out by 11 o'clock, which seems fair to me. Um, but these dudes are not religious or anything like that, and they have spent their entire life in combat and in training, So your solution, your two-part solution, I need 20,000 veterans. You give me 2 million miles. 2 million miles. What the fuck am I talking about? The link. What is the distance between the San Ysidro all the way to the other side of Texas? Like how many miles, or if we were to do a measurement and say let's measure all the border, how long is the border? And then you want to take that number and divide that number by 20,000. Listen to this. I thank you so much, Ozzy. Listen to this. This was just an idea, and I actually sent a letter off to the director of Chip Roy's office in Texas. And I said, Sir, Senator, can you possibly think about this? If the whole border, let's say this is the border, okay? This is the border of Texas. So let's say this right here is the wall to the border of Mexico and Texas. The people on the other side over here are always going to get through. In the cartels are 50 moves ahead of everybody else. They don't even know. They're saying all the migrants come through in open spaces in the border. They don't know half the shit. There are tunnels underneath the border right now that are so big that you can ride 2 horses in a carriage down these tunnels. Not the ones you see on TV. No, the ones so Guzman was, tunneling and stuff. This little not is nothing compared to what is really going on. They could drive tractor trailers through these, and they're everywhere. So this whole game, this whole bullshit that everything's on the surface, don't believe any of it. So my proposal is this. I am sending the letter off to Chip Roy, and I said, would you consider gifting every veteran within the 20,000 veterans I need? I need 20,000 veterans to handle the border of California, which is not going to be compliant, Texas and Arizona, not New Mexico. I'm not interested in doing anything in New Mexico. Just Texas, Arizona, and California. Those 3 states, I could take 20,000 veterans, and the government gift this useful land that is on the border and give us what we need to make firing ranges and training centers so that we can retrain the fucking police. Retrain the police so they don't choke people out. Instead, you're doing a seatbelt. You're not firing on. I'm thinking that we can go to non-lethal ammunition on an as-needed basis. All right, so we got 1,254 miles of land. All right, so let's do a little math. Let's see how many acres. How many acres of land fit into 1,254 miles? Okay, so we'll do this instead. We'll convert square miles to acres. Let's do that. Convert square miles. Convert square miles to acres. So let's go with square 1,254. Okay. And that is how many acres? Oh my God. That is 802,564 acres. So if there are 802, 564 square acres on the border of Mexico, Arizona, and Texas, in all those three places, that means I'm going to take this number 802,000 and we'll round it up. Let's just say 800,000. So if there's 800,000 square acres, so I've got 800,000 square acres divided by 20,000 because 20,000 is my magic number. That gives every veteran an area. That can't be right. Holy shit. That gives, okay, 800,000 divided by 20,000. Because I'm dividing up 800,000 of square miles. I need to convert this into acres. That's why. Okay, I got it. So 800,000 square miles is 655,876 square meters. That doesn't help me because I'm trying to find, all right, acres. Wait a minute. Is that 2 acres? Okay. Okay, so 800,000 square acres divided, let's just say subdivided. Subdivided. Now, I know an acre is not a lot. 5 would be ideal. Um, okay, subdivided 800,000. We can already do the numbers right now and say per 100 veterans, you're getting about 800 square feet, which is about the size of a football field. A football field. Listen, guys, I want to say this is good that you're here because I wanted to say this, Uncle Jackie. Appreciate this. We're right now, we're talking about asking the senators who are in charge of California, Texas, and Arizona if they will give me 20,000 veterans and give us all about 1,000 square feet of land on the border. It doesn't need to be on the border, but it needs to be so that all the land from one end to the other, in between where there's lots of vacant land, give us that land, and what we'll do is we'll retrain the cops. We'll retrain the cops in jujitsu so they don't choke people. We'll retrain them in de-escalation, all right? And we'll do it exactly the way we did it in the desert. Because you don't always door kick, you don't always kill people. Like you're just sweeping and shit. But what I'm saying is that
very big reasons that we need to have a these training centers on the border is so that the cops in Arizona, Texas, and California are overqualified to handle anything that the veterans can't handle themselves. Because you don't need the cops to handle migrants. All you need is 20,000 veterans, and half of them are beekeepers, and half of them are shooting instructors. Now, I'm not saying that we should have the border like this and we've got firing ranges going this way. On the contrary, I think they should go in the opposite direction. I think that as the here's the border wall, I want to make this go that way, okay, or that way, or parallel, because we don't want to give the impression, and we also don't want any accidental shootings by accident over the border, because the rate of travel for a bullet and the distance and so on is enough to go across the border if you had high powered rifles and so on. So in order to avoid that, all we have to do is just change the trajectory of which way the bullets are going, and that's just the weapons part. And I'm not talking about automatic weapons. I'm talking about just straight. Um, well, excuse me. I'm actually going off topic here. I wanted 5 acres just to do archery, and what's called NFPA 3000, which is called active shooter scenario for firefighters and paramedics. And those are classes that are newly taught down here in Mexico. Even though we don't have active shooters most of the time, last month we've been having cartel members shoot us. So in the last 2 months, we've lost 3 firefighters, one commander, 2 paramedics, 2 ambulances they set on fire, and 9 police. The commander of the fire department and the police had to step down. They were actually told by the cartel that you will step down and you will walk away, and we never want to hear from you again, because the cartels make deals with the cops. And so if the cops want to have an easy life, they will pay the cartels. And a lot of times the cops are part of the cartel. Daytime job cop, nighttime job cartel. But who knows? I do know that 25% of the population is retardedly, yes, dangerous. All right, so here's my thought, Ozzy. I just have to tell you guys this. No pasa nada. Listen to this. We have been observing people fucking up with jiu-jitsu lately, especially people are supposed to be public servants. They shouldn't be choking people out. You don't need to choke people out to control them. If you know jiu-jitsu, you know that you can wrap them up in a seatbelt. There's a lot of moves that basically can isolate people that are violent. And you guys have probably seen jiu-jitsu instructors and some robber in a 7-Eleven or something like that. And once we hear that, we can we once we once yeah, look, jiu-jitsu is one of these things that is either it's isolating, it's key locks and things like that. That's just going to hold people in place until you the cops arrive. So you don't need to choke anybody. And when the cops arrive, they are right now. I said they're completely untrained. Their jiu-jitsu is sloppy. They're not very good at escalation. And I want just to get, so many acres and per veteran. So every veteran gets, I want to say 5 to 7 acres of land. I'm trying to do the math in my head, and I'm like, well, if there's 800,000 square from this border to that from the border over here to the end of it over here, then if you divide that up by 20,000 of ex-military DD-214 good conduct holding people, gift them land, not necessarily on the border, but kind of patterned out for movements, so that there is no possibility that any of the migrants who are trying to sneak across the border will get stung by any of the bees and won't get shot by accident. Because if you think about it, I think that migrants would be more concerned with bees than getting shot by anybody. So if you advertise, listen, in between this and this area, you shouldn't go there because there's bees everywhere. Like bees everywhere. Wild bees, African bees. I'm not saying lie, but we need to emphasize that between those two areas is that if you have 20,000 veterans, no one's going through there. No one is going to come anywhere near a fucking a bee farm. But I think this would be a big solution for the veterans that can't work because they're disabled. Being in a beekeeper outfit is very good therapy. Also horses, but that's another topic. But I think that the weapons training, small arms training, non-lethal weapons training. See, guys are dependent solely on taser, and if they draw their weapon, there, you know what I'm saying. That's when it comes for deadly force. Me, I think here have been more effective with practicing just with paintballs and smoke bombs and things like that. And I think that veterans are overly qualified in war. That means they're easily qualified to teach cops de-escalation because that's what we do. These guys are screwing up. They're fucking people's lives up. So I'm just saying, out of respect for Senator Roy, out of respect for whoever is in charge of Arizona, I think that those lands right there need to be subdivided so that every state has its own really long veterans village. Because think about it, it's all abandoned land anyway. It's vacant land, and there's water there. We need a place because there are two types of species of bees that are honeybees that actually inhabit the border towns of Mexico on this side. I can go and there are everywhere. But thing is that they're wild. They're wild bees. They're not organized. What I'm saying is becoming organized with bee boxes, training centers that have firing ranges on them that'll teach have veterans teaching cops how to de-escalate and how to do jujitsu. Cops don't need help on firing a weapon. They don't. I have a different perspective on the need we have for long guns and small arms. All right. So there's your solution to three things. You've got veterans that don't have anything. They have no ownership of anything. They are not allowed to work if they're disabled. They're not allowed to earn money over whatever $100 that is that they are not allowed to take home, especially if they're on a pension. So what I'm saying is that these men need to be given the keys of the kingdom. Because if you have a border and you have a border patrol, that's one layer. Then you've got 20,000 veterans on the other side of them that have beekeeper farms, bee farms, or firing ranges. Like two things that you don't even need to deploy on anybody to scare people from going that way. Think about it. If you knew that the way that you're going to go to school or to work or whatever is a small trail through the woods, but you know for a fact that there are yellow jackets, or you see them, or you hear them, that's going to scare the fuck out of you. But if you warn the migrants on the other side in advance that the whole border now has over 50,000 bee boxes and beekeepers, and they're all veterans that have no problem at all beating your ass if you come on their property. The other portion is that we got to teach cops to de-escalate better. We need to teach cops how to do jiu-jitsu without lethality. We need to really institute non-lethal uh, ammunition. Non-lethal ammunition would definitely help in these traffic stops where people are being stupid. They have their weapons drawn and then like, oh, get your hands away from the fucking, the glove box or. But some of these people are really fucking up because they're carrying weapons. These dudes are shooting at people and at random. They don't even care anymore. So like I'm saying, save yourself. Go to Mexico. If Senator Roy talks to the right people and he says, you know what, all that land is vacant, yeah, you veterans can have it. I'm going to do that for you guys. If we can have all those guys learn the basics because they're not being trained correctly. They're going to, jujitsu classes after work and they're learning how to do, rear naked chokes and shit. But they don't realize is that you can do a rear naked choke on somebody, knock them out, but then you let them go. You don't keep squeezing until they're dead. It's not the intention of a rear naked choke anyway. It's to control the fucking body. So the solution that I've had, and Uncle Jackie, I appreciate what you're saying. He says they have a minimum de-escalator. I know this. All right, I train with the federals here, and my instructor JJ is my good friend. And when I told him, I was like, I'm not going to Puebla. I got an offer to go and work with the president's wife as a security, and my whatever team I wanted. I said, all right, great. So I called JJ. I said, JJ, get a hold of Martin over there and go and teach the cops how to fucking behave themselves because I don't want to go on a tangent with these cops about how fucking bad they are. I'm sure they get plenty in the earful from everybody else, but they don't want to hear it from the fucking fire chief. That's not good. That causes enough problems as it is. So what I'm doing is I'm just going to write letters. I'm actually going to go to El Salvador. Yesterday I spoke to the director of the office of President Ukele because I'm telling he has invited me. Well, let's just be honest here. They've invited scientists and educators to come get a passport. And here's the funny thing El Salvador is the US dollar and it's Bitcoin. I mean, that is awesome because you don't have to worry about um, the conversion rate. You don't have to worry about changing your dollars. Yeah, Ozzy, I'm telling you guys that if we can do this, I already said I'm not going to mess with New Mexico. I'm not messing. New Mexico is off limits for all veterans, period. It's not even a consideration. We only want to deal with Arizona, Texas, and California. If the leadership changes in New Mexico and I can have a fucking conversation with one of these people, then I will be honestly happy to march right into the president, to the governor's office, and I will say, Governor, you know who I am? How do you do? Here's a problem. Here's a solution. And then within under a minute, I have already solved the fucking border crisis. All right? What's going to happen if What's going to happen if there is a big old wide gap in the border where there are no bees and there are no firearms and training centers full of veterans that have a itchy trigger finger and a sweet tooth? So how do you feel about that, you guys? I realize not everybody's veterans here, but that's okay. We served our time, and if you went to war and you're all fucked up, the government should be giving you a pension. However, what happens if the government goes to shit? What happens if we have a master reset and there is no electricity anymore? We're back to the Stone Ages. What's going to happen is that we have good police and we have some that are fucked up. There are police that are there to try and ruin our lives. I know because I've been arrested 19 times by them. But now I look back on them and I say, well, if I hadn't been a drunk ass and I wasn't getting, in a fight, then I would not be in this conversation. I would never gone to jail once. And just so you guys know, I've been to jail 19 times for fighting and drunk in public. And I've been sober now for 22 years. So I've been sober a whole fucking hell of a lot longer than I drank for. And I'm not saying that to impress you, but it sure impresses the fuck out of me because I'm nothing special. And they didn't expect me to live this long. So what I'm saying is that, hey, if we could just if you were a veteran and they say, so, you know what, Senator Roy, I'm going to ask you a question, and this is serious because I'm serious about it. And I would like to offer up a solution to the migrant crisis that's on the border of the state of Texas. If I can get Chip Roy to give us the state of Texas, then we can move on to Arizona. I'm not worried about California. I'm not concerned about California. As a matter of fact, the only people like California, should go back to Mexico. Think about it. Give Mexico California. Like, just give them fucking California and let them deal with it. Because Mexicans are not going to deal with the homeless bullshit. They already have the medicine. No, I'm not talking about Narcan or anything like that. I'm talking about a medicine that if you give this medicine to a person who is strung out on heroin or crystal meth or whatever, that crank shit or whatever, where they're their clothes in half, the fentanyl shit, that this will, they'll be as sober as a preacher on Sunday in 4 hours, and they'll never touch drugs again. It's called ibogaine, and it's illegal in the United States, but it's very, very legal in Mexico, which is ironic because they don't have a whole lot of junkies down here. There are a lot of drug addicts. That's the funny thing about because of Colombia too. Is like people always assume they're like Colombians love cocaine. I'm like, what are you talking about? Colombia made fortunes off of the Americans' addiction to cocaine, and then they got to observe how the Americans behave on cocaine. And life is already hard enough in Latin America for a lot of these people. So the idea of a Colombian, risking his life, risking his freedom, it ain't gonna fly. They don't bullshit. They just stay straight to you. Go, no, 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 no. So yeah, I think about that. It's a great idea, and if you want to, I don't know if you guys are in Texas or not, but it may be something that we could start trending. Because I'm going to do it all on documentary level video with drones and all that shit. So I can go to the border and I can equally not insult the Mexicans and say, hey, we didn't set these up so that the bad ones that try and sneak across the border get stung by bees. On the contrary, there are two species of bees that are on the borders of California, Arizona, and Texas. The species of bees, there are 21,800 species of bees in Mexico. Two of them are honeybees. One of them is a regular honeybee, and the other one is a super advanced, just jacked up on steroids honeybee. And then, of course, the other types of bees and stuff like that, which are African bees, which are dangerous, that'll kill you. So you can just imagine killer bees. But the difference is that if somebody's going to sneak across the border, that means they got to go through this whole labyrinth, this gauntlet of houses that have jacked veterans every 5 acres. Oh, no, no, Ozzy, listen. If you've never been stung by a bee, it doesn't hurt. It's just a little pinch. Unlike a wasp, it's a different story. Now, 2 months ago, I was doing a bee rescue, and a bee went up into my thing and went into my ear. And the damn thing was driving me crazy. I was going, ah! And I still have bees that I have to deal with. I took my top off here, pulled the bee out of my ear, and just like clockwork, all the bees went on top of my head. So I had like a wig of bees. And I'm talking to look, you guys, you're being funny. Do you think this is funny? Look at that. I look like I have a high and tight, all of bees. The commander's over there. He's watching. He's like, "What? Are you okay?" No, I'm fine. He's like, "No, no, no. I'm gonna spray you down with the hose." And I'm like, "No, no, no, no." I put my hood back on, and meanwhile, there are 50 bees on top of my head, just stinging the living shit out of me on the top of my head. And I spent the next week just pulling their stingers out of my head. Bee stings improve your ability to fight against disease. I know, it's crazy. It's an injection that bees give you. They sacrifice their life and give you something that may actually help you, maybe benefit. People that haven't been stung by bees are afraid of bees. So if you're accustomed to bees, you don't care. And if you live in such a way that you have to remember, bees are like little baby dogs. They have personalities, just like horses. If you've ever been around horses, horses also have personalities, but they're more like teenagers. They get annoyed easily. They're lazy. I mean, there's all kinds of characteristics of these things. Bees are bees are workers. Yeah, bees are workers. Being a beekeeper isn't a job; it's a hobby, and there's a lot of things that you can do with what you work with because it's definitely something worth looking into. So if you're a veteran or if you know of a veteran that is interested in 5 to 7 acres of vacant land in between the states of Texas and California, and this person is a disabled or active duty or normal veteran that is fully self supporting, I would like you to help me and put together a poll. I would like to get a petition of signatures from everybody. A petition of signatures that says, Senator Roy, would you help us, help the country by allowing veterans who intend on staying in Texas to just have the first few miles of the border where there may or may not be guards or anything? Because we don't want to be around that. We want to be out in the middle of fucking nowhere in our air conditioned houses and having Margaritaville. And if they need us, we don't hop to it. Follow me? What we need as veterans is to train the police to de-escalate, to use non-lethal force. They're still using those old ass tasers. That is like ridiculous to me. I mean, why? And they're using it on traffic stops. Really? Traffic stops. And they don't realize they're on camera. They're on mics, hot mics, but they don't care. I know it's fucked up, right? Isn't that fucked up? Bro, I'm telling you, if you do get stung by a bee, it's not the end of the world. Doesn't unless you're allergic. That's a different story. But on a regular basis, I definitely um, get stung, but that's been good for my immunity. You guys know that, right? Bee stings help do a lot of stuff. Immunity. Yeah. Um. Okay. Yes, firefighters and police officers, both the active ones anyway, are always in some sort of a silly conflict in the United States. That doesn't happen in other countries. The rivalry that you're talking about is cops versus paramedics and firefighters, and they always tend to drive by the station and do videos of us and do TikToks of us because a lot of times there's a lot of hours of time on your hands and you're playing pickleball or whatever. And so the other teams will hate on us because we do videos and you see the videos. It's not a question about that. I also am reaching out to a couple of new fire departments that don't have a children's program that I think we may be able to do the summer camp and invite all these groups that aren't doing a summer camp to do summer camp with us. So I have just combined Baskin Robbins with Nathan's hot dogs. Yeah, I just did that. But except I use only veterans and I use two tactics to keep people the fuck out. Bees and long arm weapons. Not pistols. A firing range, a proper fucking firing range, has a long gun with a scope. Right? For the rest of you, you're just a bunch of noisemakers. You're better off go to the nearest toy store. I was going to say Toys R Us, but that would be a mean thing to say. And if they're well equipped, they should be part of a team. It is true, but the problem is that no one wants to participate. They're very, very selfish in that matter, and I fully understand. There's a lot of dudes that have problems. So I have a thing right now. This is a program. It's not my program. It is the USDA Beekeeping School. And right now, the USDA is offering free courses for all veterans to become beekeepers. So I'm going to use this opportunity to have the skills training for beekeeping for all veterans that want to do that. And weapons training over here, firearms training, but we're doing secured areas. So we're not skipping any steps, meaning that we bottleneck the choke point. No one gets by there unless they go through a certain area. And you double down your efforts. The Mexicans, holy shit. That whole like section between Tijuana border and in the interior of Mexico into Sonora before you get to customs is in the middle of nowhere. And they go and they open up all the things in the bus and they check in bags. They check, your passport when they stop you. And they just go like this. And then one day, there was no more of that. Panama had become corporate. Panama had become the example of what not the fuck to be when you go overseas. Yeah. Different story now. I don't know what the deal is now. It's 2024, you guys. 20 fucking 24. Time flies when you're having fun. So I hope you're having fun with me today because I'm telling you guys the solution to our problems is common sense. And all you need to do is use a little bit of common sense and say, look, the most painfully overqualified people for weapons security training, anti-kidnapping training is veterans. And if they can teach the regular cops and a border patrol to how to do jiu-jitsu correctly, all right, just to do the move correctly so you don't accidentally kill somebody. See, that's the problem with me is that I accidentally almost kill people when I do a Darce choke because my arms get like this and then their head is in there and I can't get it out. So I end up Darce choking a lot of people, not intentionally trying to hurt them or knock them out because we're grown men. We don't need to beat on each other like that. So practicing this philosophy has helped a lot of guys live longer. And that's why I wanted to invite you guys to any of my classes. I am now doing classes at the gym, like inside the gym. And you can see I put on some weight since we got started. That's good because I was too skinny. People ask me if I was fucking dying or something. Man, it is so cool that we have this thing. Okay, and Uncle Jackie's got a question. He says, "Are the cops equal but separate out there too?" Firemen and versus police was a big thing for a while. Yeah, it goes in phases. Um, well, think about what the cops do. What do the cops do? Period. Like, what is their actual job? Right? Protect and serve. Right? Okay. How do you protect men, grown men, from people attacking them and having guns and stuff like that? And you're a cop and you're a woman. How are you going to stop two men from duking it out? How are you going to stop two dudes that don't care about climate change? Huh? I know it's nuts. But I hope that you have enjoyed this, you guys. Remember, money changes everything, but you don't got to worry about worshiping it. It's bad news. I'm the professor, and I'm out, my man.